Hello everybody, I've been doing quite a lot of thought today about Anzac Day, which is a big remembrance day here in Australia and New Zealand, a public holiday. Among the events that happen in Australia and New Zealand, along with Australia Day and Waitangi Day, Anzac Day is probably the most remembered day, the most important day in the Australian calendar. It remembers the 10,000 plus Australian and New Zealand troops, otherwise known as Anzacs, who died during the Gallipoli campaign in Turkey in 1915, when many thousands of troops tried to storm the beaches. Not just Australian and New Zealanders, who made up the bulk of the force, but a few British troops, South Africans, Canadian, and people from what was to become the Republic of Ireland. They also fought too. But here, because it was really the main first campaign that Australian and New Zealand troops had ever fought in, it's a very big day. In fact, many would say it defined Australians as Australians instead of what many were before, which was British and very much part of the British Empire. It gave them an identity, but also it was a poignant reminder of people fighting for the Empire and very much the waste of life that happened on that day on 25th April on the Gallipoli beaches in 1915 in Turkey. Well, a friend today upset me. He didn't mean to. He had had a hard day, but he really upset me. I was invited to his father's property on the Anzac Day weekend, which is a public holiday here in Australia, and I said, I would love to go, but I don't think I should go on Anzac Day weekend, because the Anzac Day weekend for me is a time when I want to be in Sydney to see the Remembrance Day services. It means quite a lot to me. And he came back with the line, "Why do you want to see old men march?" And for some reason that line really upset me. I ended up hanging up the phone, and it really got to me because he was questioning my sincerity and he thought it was about me just not wanting to go away with him, when in fact I actually sincerely do hold Anzac Day as a very, very important day, along with millions and millions of Australians. And the line he said, "Why do you want to see old men march?" really hit with me, and I wonder if other people have that same attitude. For me, it really hurt me because by saying, "Why do I want to see old men march?" it really misinterprets and misconstrues the real meaning of Anzac Day. Not only was it at a time when very much an Australian and New Zealand identity was established, but for me, Anzac Day has nothing to do with glorifying war. I would never glorify war. Wars, whether justified or not, are horrible affairs. Lives are wasted, families are affected, people are maimed, people are injured, there is blood, death on both sides. So for me, it's not just a day to remember the 10,000 plus Australian and New Zealand troops that died, were massacred, that were slaughtered. It's also a time to remember not just those in the Commonwealth troops that were died, but to also remember the Turkish troops fighting on the other side. Many of them had families. Some of them believed they were fighting for a just cause, defending their homeland. Many of them were young Turkish conscripts who were massacred too. So it's not just a time to remember people from the Allied side and the Turkish side who died in that war, but also it's very much an event to remember the people who've died in all battles around the world, you know, through all centuries, particularly the last 100 years or so with Gallipoli, also the Second World War, the rest of the First World War, Korea, Vietnam, all events that have taken place. It's to remember not only those that have died, but to also remember their sacrifices, as well as the sacrifices of those who are still living, who gave their lives to fight what their governments thought was for freedom or for a just cause, whether justified or not. It's to remember what people did for us, to remember that they fought in the name of freedom, and certainly nothing to do with glorifying war. I hate war. To me, war is nothing to be glorified. It's nothing to be particularly proud of. It's a time when people give their lives and they sacrifice their lives and often lose their lives. And for me, Anzac Day is a time for thought. It's not about me. It's about them. It's a time for thought, to reflect on life and the importance of life. As Anzac Day, just as Remembrance Day, say in the UK, is a time for remembrance, a time to remember those who died and to give thanks to them for fighting for what they considered and the governments considered, and maybe I and others consider, well, our freedoms. whether they were conscripts or not. And also to thank people that none of my friends are being forced or even going voluntarily into battle, that they're not on the battlefields, that I'm not, say, fighting on the Battle of the Somme or in Gallipoli. And to remember what they went through. My own grandfather was a prisoner of war for 3.5 years in Japan. He was torpedoed on the HMS Exeter. He was a lieutenant commander. And you know, when I complain about my life, I think about his years in the POW camp. I think about those who fought in the trenches in the First World War and at Gallipoli. All those young people who lost their lives thousands and thousands of miles from home, never having been abroad before, being separated from their families. For me, it's a time to remember them and give thanks to them for sacrificing their lives for what was very much believed at the time our freedom, and to say to myself, I hope people never in their thousands have to go through again what they went through here in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, or anywhere. So for me, it's an important day, and it's not about old men marching. It's about not forgetting. It's about giving thanks. It's about honouring those who died and are still alive, but certainly not glorifying war or saying war is great, or even necessarily that war is justified. It's just to remember life and to remember those who died. So for me, when I say Anzac Day means a lot to me, it's nothing to do with flag waving. It's just a time to remember and to reflect. That's what it means to me. Thank you.